How are you all doing, guys? It is Tom Hawk here, and in today's video I am going to be trying to decide which I think, in my opinion, was the best DLC, Ill-Gotten Gains Part 1 or Ill-Gotten Gains Part 2. And I'm going to be doing this by looking at the three main factors, this being the vehicles that came with the DLC, the clothing and the weapons. So we're going to be looking at these three things and deciding which were best, and then adding them all together and deciding which overall was the best DLC. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So to start this video off, we are going to be taking a look at the weapons that came with both the DLCs. Now in Ill-Gotten Gains Part 1 we were given the Combat PDW, and I think this did not live up to expectations. People assumed that this weapon was going to be some sort of laser weapon, because it was made by a company, I forget the name now, but it was made by a certain company that had never made weapons before, which led to people to believe that it was going to be some sort of special, unique type of weapon that was going to deal lots of damage, but then did not live up to expectations. It's a nice looking gun, it does what a gun should do, but it's nothing that stands out, and there's no reason to use this over any of the other guns. Now this is the only weapon we got in the first part of the Ill-Gotten Gains, so they were slightly lacking when it came to weapons, but let's see if the Ill-Gotten Gains Part 2 could do any better. Moving on to Ill-Gotten Gains Part 2, the first weapon we were given was the Knuckle Dusters. Now I think this is probably the best weapon we were given over these two DLCs. Lots of hype about this weapon. It was just the perfect addition for GTA. It just looks absolutely amazing, has loads of customizable options, and it's just a load of fun to use. So I think this was one of the best weapons we've received in a DLC, one of the most fun weapons, and I think this is probably the best weapon over the two DLCs. The final weapon we received during the Ill-Gotten Gains Part 2 DLC was the Marksman pistol. Now this pistol is a very nice looking pistol, it has a nice design and it was a good idea, but due to its one bullet capacity, meaning we have to reload every time we shoot this weapon, does give it a disadvantage, meaning it's not very practical for actually using in gunfights. So overall I do think the Knuckle Dusters were the best weapon that we received, meaning the Ill-Gotten Gains Part 2 wins the weapons category. So after taking a look at the clothing that we received in the Ill-Gotten Gains Part 1 and Part 2, I've come to the conclusion that Part 1 was better, mainly because when I looked through them there seems to be a lot more variety of clothing and a lot more variety of sort of hats, and just there seems to be a lot of different things that you are able to choose. Now I'm just going through these designer clothes because it would take forever for me to look through every single bit of clothing that was given to us as the Part 1 of the Ill-Gotten Gains. But when we look at Part 2, it seems that there are some nice clothing in here, but it's a lot of the same. Like these two tops are the same, just in different colours. Then there's like another one here, and it just seems like it's mainly the same things placed over and over again, just in different colours. So maybe they ran out of ideas, maybe it was just the intention to put more clothing in the first part, I don't know, but I just think that the Part 1 of the Ill-Gotten Gains had the better clothing, so therefore it wins this category. So for the final part of the video we are going to be looking at the vehicles we received over these two DLCs. Now vehicles are probably the most influential things that can come in a DLC. Whether it makes it bad or good is mainly down to how good the vehicles are. So first of all, the two ginormous failures of the Ill-Gotten Gains Part 1 were the two vehicles, the Luxor Deluxe and the Swift Deluxe. And these vehicles cost 15 million together in total, and they are a waste of money, and they're a waste of a vehicle really, because Rockstar seems to put in roughly the same amount of vehicles per DLC, and they wasted two vehicles on these two remakes of vehicles that were already in the game. So this gives the Part 1 of the Ill-Gotten Gains a massive disadvantage straight off the bat. Now for the disadvantage of Part 2, Rockstar released this Lamborghini Toro, a $1.75 million boat. Now I don't know whether you do, but I do not drive boats in GTA Online. I just find there is no use for them, and who on earth is going to pay 1.75 million for this boat, especially compared to the prices of some of the other boats, when you can get a dinghy for 125,000 or a speeder that to me looks fairly similar for such a smaller amount. It seems ridiculous. So moving on to probably the most important part of DLCs, and that is the cars we receive with them. Now we go on to the Legendary Motorsports, and here you can see every car and bike that we received in the Ill-Gotten Gains Part 1 and 2. Now I am going to leave out this bike because we received 5 vehicles in the second part and 4 in the first, meaning we did receive obviously more in the second, possibly making it better, giving us more content. So that already gives the second part of the DLC a slight advantage. But having a look at these vehicles, the Albany Virgo is almost $200,000 compared to the Vapiccino, which is $225,000, and I've heard the Albany Virgo, if I can ever pronounce that, is better at a cheaper price, so that gives the Part 1 a little advantage. So at the moment it is all square. The Anus Windsor is a very nice looking car with a very nice skin that we were able to change and practically do whatever we want with it, where the Coil Brawler was something that we'd never seen in GTA before. So both these cars are very good contenders, but I'm going to give it to the Coil Brawler mainly because it's cheaper and it is just something really unique. Now for the sports classics, we have the Benefactor Sterling and the Invertigo. Now looking at these cars, I straight away prefer the Benefactor with its gull-wing doors, but looking at the price, there is a big price difference when the Benefactor is almost coming in at $1 million, where the Invertigo is 700,000. So I'm still going to have to give it to the Benefactor just because I think it looks much better than the Invertigo. But anyway, we come on to the absolute big boys, the tanks of these two DLCs, the Pegassi Osiris and the Progen T20. So when the Pegassi Osiris came out, everyone was absolutely crazed about it. It was the best racing car, the most expensive car we had ever received, until a month later the Progen T20 came along and absolutely destroyed that by bringing out a $250,000 more expensive car. It is already been proven that it is fast around the track, and these two cars are the main sort of selling points of the DLC. So I'm going to have to give the cars over to the Ill-Gotten Gains Part 2 because I think the Progen T20 absolutely makes this DLC for me. I think it's probably the best car that has ever come out in GTA so far. So that is it, guys. The overall winner, I do believe, was the DLC, the Part 2, and I think it was such a better DLC. Didn't have a $15 million price tag within 2 vehicles, and yet it was cheaper. It wasn't cheap by any means, but I think overall it won it, and I hope that you agree with me. If not, tell me why, but I think the second part of this DLC did beat the first part. So I hope you have enjoyed this video, guys. If you have, make sure to hit the thumbs up button, subscribe for more, and I will see you in my next video.